WHGE 95.3 FM coming up. The Open Eye. Not sure how this is going to go. How come you can't hear them both at the same time?
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression in our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here to get your eye open, here to get them started. And as we always start off, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. All right. Okay, let's see if I can get my disclaimer out the way here. All right.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Let's get with it. Okay. All right. We're going to start here. Diabolical. It's diabolical. There is no single place on earth where the white man had ever been and lived in peace and harmony with the local people. Wherever they go, their first instinct is to destroy or destabilize or do. The first instinct. Yeah. So you got to expand your mind, keep up on your history, understand who we are. Expand your mind outside the box because there's a whole lot more than what's been ingrained in your mind. Information that you see on the walls of the temples of Kemet were put there by our ancestors. It tells of the stories about the ancestors that created math, science, language, art, music, electricity, agriculture. It tells the story of the virgin Isis, Asir, in Kemetic language, whose immaculate conception created Horus, the sun god. It tells us the history of Imhotep, the father of medicine, and the creator of the first medical instruments that are still in use today. Basically, everything that's ever been created, that's ever been invented, and we're taught who invented them, originally came from Africans. Hey, Sherry. The problem is that our story has been buried for so long that most of us have a hard time believing anything outside of what was learned in textbooks. What's on the temple walls? There are plenty of books to prove this. Do the research yourself. Yes, sir. That's all you got to do is do the research yourself. You know, it's something that when we do talk about our history, we often include the abolitionists, those white people that were against slavery, worked against it. But sometimes we don't take a deep look at who some of these people are, because a lot of the abolitionists, even though they were against slavery, were not for the equality of the races. And when you call, when the Republicans, they like, oh, Lincoln freed the slaves. Lincoln did not free the slaves. Oh, we are the party of Lincoln. Yeah, you're the party of Lincoln, because Lincoln was really just a racist ass. He did nothing to really free the slaves. No, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves. The Republican Party of Lincoln's time was actually not the party of Lincoln. It was really the party of Thaddeus Stevens. Look him up. It was also the party of Cassius Clay. No, I don't mean the boxer. I do not mean the boxer. Cassius Clay Jr., who changed his name to Muhammad Ali. That's who we will always remember him as. But his father was named after Cassius Clay. Muhammad Ali was Cassius Clay Jr., his father Cassius Clay Sr., and he was named after a white man named Cassius Clay. I'll tell you about Cassius Clay. On October 19th, 1810, Green Clay, cousin of former Senator Henry Clay and Sally Lewis, welcomed their son, Cassius Marcellus Clay, into the world. Little did they know how colorful a character their son would become. Clay featured on the National Constitution Center's American National Tree. Part of his main exhibit. Was born in Kentucky and resided there for most of his life. Although his family had owned slaves, Clay became an abolitionist early in his life after hearing a speech by William Lloyd Garrison while at Yale in 1832. He eventually founded the abolitionist newspaper True American. Hey, Steve. In 1835, he was elected to the Kentucky House of Representatives and was re-elected 3 more times despite his abolitionist beliefs. He was one of the first members of the Republican Party, eventually currying in favor with President Lincoln. While in the Kentucky House, Clay was not the most popular man. On 2 occasions, he was nearly killed for being an abolitionist. The first attempt occurred during a political debate. The story goes that political enforcer Sam Brown was hired to take Clay out. He walked on stage and promptly shot Clay in the chest, but Clay did not go down and instead struck Brown multiple times with his Bowie knife, ultimately cutting off Brown's nose and ear. The second attempt was an ambush by the Turner brothers, whose father was a pro-slavery politician. They surrounded Clay and proceeded to beat and stab him to near death. But Clay never wanted to go down without swinging, once again used his Bowie knife to injure his attackers, eventually ran down the eldest brother, Clay Turner, and stabbed him to death. That's right. Despite his reputation for being a bruiser, Clay was also a skilled politician, although his most notable accomplishments happened abroad. He was appointed by Lincoln to be United States Senator to Russia. His tenure ran through the Civil War and was critical in ensuring Russian support for the North during the war. The agreement was made as a preventive measure to discourage Britain and France from supporting the South, as the Russians deployed parts of their navy in the harbors of New York and San Francisco to show support for the North. He was also crucial in the talks that ultimately allowed U.S. to buy Alaska from the Russians, which was ultimately completed shortly after the war. After his ambassadorship ended, Clay sought to make his voice heard. He supported the Cuban independence movement against Spain, forming the Cuban Charitable Aid Society. Politically, Clay switched parties due to disagreements over certain policy issues, such as President Grant's decision to interfere in Haiti and the radical Republicans' plans for Reconstruction. He instead joined the liberal Republicans and later became a Democrat. But ultimately, Clay returned to the party of which he was one of the first members. Clay died in 1903 due to natural causes. Ironic considering all the attempts on his life. Clay's legacy still lives on at his estate, Whitehall, which can be found in Richmond, Kentucky. Also, his name has been passed down for generations. One of his former slaves, Herman Heaton Clay, named his son Cassius Clay in honor of the abolitionists. That Cassius Clay went on to name his son Cassius Clay Jr. We know who Cassius Clay Jr. became. The greatest, the heavyweight champion of the world forever, Muhammad Ali. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Oh. Okay. All right. Moving right along. WHGE, WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yeah, it's something that the Orange Disasters regime has gotten rid of so many people in government because of their aversion to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what Trump has done is fill his cabinet with a bunch of mediocre white people, mostly white men, and a couple of white women, but they're not the sharpest knives in the drawer, which is one of the reasons he's against education. Look at his cabinet, it's a bunch of incompetent morons. Yeah. I mean, you talk about lack of merit. The meritocracy claim goes way out the window when you look at his dumbass cabinet. That's the really incompetent cabinet. And then look at Canada. Look at their cabinet. Their governmental cabinet. The Minister of Health is a real doctor. The Minister of Transport is an astronaut. The Minister of National Defense is a Sikh veteran. The Minister of Youth is under the age of 45. The Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food is a former farmer. Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness was a scout. The Minister of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development was a financial analyst. I don't even think we had one of those. The Minister of Finance is a real businessman, an actual successor, not one with 6 bankruptcies, and they're a really successful businessman. Knows how it's done. The Minister of Justice was a Crown prosecutor and is a First Nations leader. Okay, for those of you that don't understand what I mean, he's indigenous. The Minister of Sport and Persons with Disability is a visually impaired Paralympian. The Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and Canadian Coast Guard is Inuit. He's an Inuit. And once again, he's indigenous. The Minister of Science is a medical geographer with a PhD. The Minister of Immigration, Citizenship, and Refugees was an immigration critic. There are scientists in the cabinet, and it's made up of 50% women. Meanwhile, we got RFK Jr. and some other morons in the Orange Disaster regime. They come up with all these dumb ideals, like getting rid of PBS, because, you know, of course, he not Orange Disaster, and no one on his team likes education. That's one thing. They do not want people educated. They don't want starting out with children. So what do they want to do? They want to get rid of PBS. They want to get rid of Sesame Street. Breaking news. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting makes a brilliant chess move to counter the Orange Disaster's plan to gut his board of directors by changing its bylaws to block his firing power. This is the nonprofit corporation that oversees NPR and PBS, which are despised by education adverse Republicans. All right, sister Lady D, I see you there. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CBB, passed a measure this week that states that no director may be removed from the board by any person or authority, including the President of the United States, without a 2/3 vote of the other directors confirming such removal. Excuse me. The reference to the president comes amidst the Orange Disaster's outspoken, transparently politically motivated attacks on public broadcasters. He is called for stripping their federal funding. Along with his MAGA minions, he's pushing the smear that public broadcasters are biased against right-wing ideals. The truth, of course, is that reality itself is biased against right-wing ideals. Conservatives live in a fear-soaked world of their own making, ruled by conspiracy theories and bigotry. Any honest broadcaster is going to poke holes in the MAGA narrative just by telling the truth. And that's all you got to do. Perhaps conservatives also resent the fact that PBS programs like Sesame Street teach children to be kind and caring towards everyone. Values that stand in stark contrast to the xenophobic policies that now hold sway over the GOP. Earlier this week, NPR CEO Catherine Mayer published a memo professing the organization's mission to serve the entire nation and listen to a politically diverse audience. This new change to the bylaws comes after the Corporation for Public Broadcasting sued Trump and his officials in the U.S. District Court for Washington, D.C. after the Deputy Director of Presidential Personnel for the Executive Office of the President sent an email stating that 3 CPB board members must be terminated. During the hearing for that lawsuit, the judge stated that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's board protected itself if it wanted to be protected from the firings by amending its bylaws. Now they've done exactly that. Yeah. That's what you get in Cracker Jacks. That's what they did. They shut that crap down. All right, moving right along. Let's take a little quick musical break. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist, right here on WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. One of our hosts, she's a co-host on the Sunday show. Where is that? I got it right here. What I do with it? Sunday, yes. Everything Black with Brother Hanif Salim and Sister Shanae Darby. I'll tell you something about Shanae Darby. All right. She is a councilwoman. And she recently put up a post directed at the Wilmington Police Department. I'm going to read what she said here. Wilmington Police Department, you violated my rights. This happened earlier this week. I think it was Wednesday when she posted it. So she posted it Wednesday, so it happened on Tuesday of this week. Yesterday, you reminded me exactly why our community does not and cannot trust you. You lied to force me, a passenger, to identify myself, even though I'm not legally obligated to do so. Then you escalated it further with a false claim that I was under investigation. For what? Being black and present in my own neighborhood? Then you sent a probation officer to my side of the car, someone with zero authority over me, clearly trying to intimidate me into silence. So I did what I had to do. I made the calls. I invoked my position as a city council member. And just like that, no ticket, no warning, just y'all can go. That's the problem. What happens to the people who don't have a city council seat? What happens to those that don't know their rights? Who don't have access to the people I can call? How many have been harassed, arrested, or traumatized simply because they lack the privilege that I carry? This is not an isolated incident. It reflects systemic issues within the Wilmington Police Department that demand urgent attention and accountability. And the data proves it. According to Police Scorecard, Wilmington Police Department scores just 33% overall, placing it in the lower half of departments nationwide. Use of force, 43%, pointing to alarming trends in how force is used in our community. Accountability, 38%, showing how few complaints are upheld. Focus, 43%. Indicating that you spend more time policing low-level offenses than investigating in real community and than investing in real community engagement. You don't want to live among us, but you want to police us. You treat us like threats instead of people, like animals to be controlled instead of residents to be protected. We have to do better. We have to hold the Wilmington Police Department accountable, not just when it happens to someone in power, but for every single person who has been silenced, scared, or surveilled just for being black and present. I'm done being quiet, and you will be held accountable. I'm sure you'll hear more on Everything Black tomorrow at 1 and what have you. And you have to wonder, what motivated them to come after her? Okay? What motivated them? Could it have anything to do with her stance on rent stabilization and the other stances she takes in favor of not just the people in her council district, but in the city of Wilmington? Okay? Because I was there at the committee meeting where it was voted to the full floor. Rent stabilization, her ordinance for rent stabilization. And one of the things that I noticed, okay, was one, the way the landlords showed up that were against rent stabilization and calling it rent control and this, that, and the other thing. But I also noticed some of the landlords, and it was also mentioned to me from some of the activists that were there, some of the people that spoke up, that the landlords were taking their picture. They're taking photos of them when they got up to speak. And what were they doing that for? Because they planned to punish these people for speaking out. And that's what that's about. Tell you what, Sister Shanae Darby, continue to speak out, because we got your back. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist, right here. Keeping my eye open, keeping my eye on Africa. Yeah. And how many saw the clown show with Trump and the president of South Africa? You have to look at Trump's viral video. His photo. White farmer genocide. The photo was debunked. The image is actually from Congo, not South Africa. Trump displayed numerous printed articles and played a nearly 5-minute-long video montage to reporters at the White House that he claimed proved that white Afrikaner farmers, white colonizers in Africa, were the victims of a genocide in South Africa. It's a lie. The video actually showed a 2020 demonstration, not a burial site, to bring attention to the deaths of farmers of all races and not just white farmers. President Trump, Lawrence Disaster, also displayed an image of what he claimed were body bags of white farmers who had been murdered in South Africa. He's a lying ass. The image was of humanitarian workers burying bodies in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The outlet said the image was a screen grab of a Reuters video in February after deadly battles against Rwanda-backed rebels who had captured the city. While crime in South Africa is high, data shows that most murder victims in the country, more than 26,000 in 2024, were actually black. As for farmers themselves, only 44 murders were linked to farmers, and then only 7 of those were white. The real conflict with farmers in South Africa is the disproportionate amount of land owned by white Afrikaner colonizers. Though they compose only 7% of the population, they own 75% of the farmland. That's ridiculous. A law signed by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in January intended to bring a legislative process to redress land inequality. It essentially allowed the government to seize private land. The orange disaster has repeatedly pointed to the law as evidence of white farmers being targeted. However, the South African government has said no land has been seized. The government also said it was instead tried to encourage white farmers to willingly sell their land, which of course they don't want to do. And really, sell their land? Let me tell you something, President Ramaphosa. Don't let them profit off of theft. The hell is wrong with you? Don't buy a goddamn thing from them. Take back what belongs to you. To the African that they stole. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. Listen, for the I don't have to worry, I'm a citizen crowd, yeah, you have to worry. Marissa, a U.S. citizen whose house got raided by ICE agents, had all her electronic devices and cash stolen, while she and her daughters were forced at gunpoint to lay down half naked in the front yard. And these ICE people, they are showing up in places you wouldn't expect. Now, here's the crazy thing. They're kidnapping people without due process. And the courts are saying, you can't do that. We have habeas corpus. But now they want to suspend habeas corpus, which really makes it kidnap. So they rolling up on you and you don't have any due process. You're just being kidnapped. And when they show up on people, they're declaring they don't have to identify themselves. And remember that he's deputizing the Orange Disasters regime, okay, is deputizing January 6th insurrectionists who are rolling up on people and refusing to identify. And without habeas corpus, that's just kidnapped. And it's kidnapped by someone that's probably been deputized illegally. I have advice for you. You have the right to protect yourself. Somebody roll up, try to kidnap you, you do everything you can to protect yourself. I'm not leading you to violence. I'm telling you self-defense. Strap up. Don't let these people roll up on you and kidnap you, because you do have to worry. Once they get finished going after Hispanic people and brown people, who you think they coming out next? Because see, their plan is they just want black and white. And not because they have any favor for us, but they want other people out of the way in case they want to join forces. They think they can bring back Jim Crow and the oppression of our people. They got it mixed. Because we are the children, the descendants of the ancestors that fought back and kicked your ass. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist. All right, all right. All right. Don't get it mixed. Yeah, it's something, since the orange disaster got back in office. Mm-hmm. You got these mayonnaise mafia people thinking they can roll up. All right? And they're rolling up on the wrong people. And I'm glad to see that. That's the kind of energy that's being shown. That's the kind of energy we need to have. This white woman rolled up on this sister, told her she didn't belong here, and slapped the drink out her face. That sister slapped fire out her ass. I bet she won't do that again. She went on about her business then. Yeah. And you had this fool rolled up in the bar. Rolled up in the bar. Already intoxicated. Mm-hmm. Start hanging out, hollering out the N-word in a bar full of black people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In a bar in Mississippi. Start yelling out the N-word at black patrons. They whooped his ass. Took his money and stripped him. That's the kind of energy we need. Now the cops are saying it was a hate crime. No, not against him. Not against the fool that rolled up in a bar full of black people hollering out the N-word, thinking there were going to be no consequences. Oh, we could do that now. Orange disaster's in power. The police want to bring a hate crime against the black people that whooped his ass, and deservedly so. They should have. They should have. Yeah, that's right. Roll up with that crap. I think we are here. Yeah. And they ask him to leave. They ask him to leave quietly, but he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. Stand up in there and holler out the N-word. It's crazy. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. Okay, now I'm going to go back to Africa for a minute here. It's something I got to deal with. And Ibrahim Touré. Mm-hmm. About a month ago, Saudi Arabia offered to build 200 mosques in Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Touré, president, kindly rejected the offer, and he said, we don't need 200 mosques. The people in Gaza can pray in their war-torn environment. We can pray anywhere. We don't need 200 mosques. Now, someone that I had followed and listened to, and he has made some good points, was Shahid Bassem, an interesting character who is actually a German Irishman. I think he's from Wisconsin, who adheres to the religion of Islam. Mm-hmm. And I think he's a very good social analyst, political analyst, and what have you. And he spoke highly in favor of Ibrahim Touré. And one of the things that I noticed he did was he declared that Ibrahim Touré was Muslim first. I don't think that's how Ibrahim Touré looks at it. And he was really insulting to Pan-Africanists, who he called CIA inspired conspiracy theorists or some crap like that. Yeah, because we as Pan-Africanists understand and realize that Ibrahim Touré is African first. How many times have you had me criticize my brothers in Islam who are Muslim first, my brothers and sisters in Christianity who are Muslim first, or Christian first, before they're black? I'm black first. I don't care what my brand of spirituality is. I'm black African first, Pan-Africanist. And the reason Saudi Arabia wants to build 200 mosques is to slow down that momentum of Pan-Africanism, which is spreading. They want to slow Ibrahim Touré. They want to slow him down from doing so much for his people. Because in the 2 years that he took stewardship of the country, Burkina Faso's GDP grew, its gross domestic product, from approximately 18 billion to 22 billion. He rejected loans from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. He said Africa doesn't need the World Bank, the IMF, Europe, or America. He reduced the salaries of ministers and parliamentarians by 30% and increased the salaries of civil service by 50%. He paid off Burkina Faso's debts. He established 2 tomato processing plants, the first ever in Burkina Faso, and now Burkina Faso is one of the leading producers of tomatoes. In 2023, he inaugurated a state-of-the-art gold mine to enhance local processing capabilities instead of sending it out to be processed. That's where the profit is. That's why he stopped the export of unrefined Burkina Faso gold to Europe. He built Burkina Faso's second cotton processing plant. Previously, the country only had one. He opened the first ever national support center for artisanal cotton processing to assist local cotton farmers. He banned the wearing of British legal wigs and gowns in local courts and introduced traditional Burkina attire, African attire. He prioritized agriculture by distributing more than 400 tractors, 239 tillers, 710 motor pumps, 714 motorcycles to boost production and support rural stakeholders. He provided access to improved seeds and other farm inputs to maximize agricultural output. He banned French military operations in Burkina Faso. He banned French media in Burkina Faso. He expelled French troops. His government is constructing new roads, widening existing ones, and upgrading gravel roads to paved surfaces. And his influence is spreading throughout Africa and the diaspora. And they figured, well, maybe we can use his religion to slow him down. No. He's Pan-Africanist first. That's why he said the agriculture in his country must first feed his people before they start exporting the goddamn thing. Global African supremacy. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. All right. Brother, I will often hear you speak against Christianity and Islam and Hebrewism and what have you. Yeah. Because Dr. Clark teaches us that Christianity is the handmaiden of European imperialism. That Islam is the tool of Arab imperialism. That Judaism is the tool of the so-called chosen people. Nobody choose you, chose your damn self, converts. As practiced, Islam, Christianity, Judaism are male chauvinist murder cults. What is faith without freedom? Church tribunals decreed that baptism did not equal liberty. An enslaved person could accept Christianity yet remain legal property for life. Missionary chaplains sailed aboard slave ships. They dutifully recorded baptisms while chained Africans suffered below deck. Okay? And all three of these religions were involved in the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. Oh, slavery was everywhere. No, we're not going to do that. I don't want to hear that crap because there's nothing that you can compare to chattel slavery as practiced by the Europeans, especially in America. Nothing is dehumanizing. And that's why we must have and understand the spiritual warfare. Because Islam and Christianity are not popular by the dint of the quality of their knowledge and information. They're popular by the quantity of their violence. Whether that violence be psychological or physical. Every religion is a deification of somebody's culture. Okay? That's why I'm hard on when I see Muslims in Arab attire. Because culturally you have become an Arab. I don't think I excuse Christians running around wearing death symbols, the cross. Every religion is the deification of somebody's culture. When we participate in someone else's religion, we are supporting their deification process. When we participate in religions of those who seek to destroy our people, we therefore become willing participants in our own destruction. African spiritual warfare is a deification process. Through African spiritual warfare, we make our unique history sacred. In this way, we empower ourselves. By deifying our ancestors, we fought against the enslavement of our people. We are able to be warriors for our people. Through the spiritual process, we become something new. We have an obligation to deify our ancestors. But only Africans can deify Africans. In the act of deifying our warriors, we become warriors. As we make our story divine through the process of spiritual warfare, we are able to use the Ma'afa for waging war against the enemies of our people. As we define it within the context of victory, in this view, the Ma'afa becomes one of the most significant periods in our story. It has the greatest power to transform us into warriors that we must be. Through the nationalization and indigenization of Africa's spiritual warfare, we gain clarity about who we are and what our role is in the reclamation of African sovereignty. African spiritual warfare both requires and creates an African identity. It involves the process of re-Africanization, in which we claim the highest ideals of what we have inherited from our motherland. Now understand, by re-Africanization, we do not mean that we mimic or romanticize everything that our ancestors did. It means that we learn and study what they created so that their highest ideals can become our ideals, and we can apply the highest principles by which they live. In this way, we can take responsibility for who we are and we must become in order to fulfill our destinies as Africans. On this, thanks Sister Sherry for posting that. And that is from Tasu Tasasamli, Asan Ajinaku, and Marimba An. You heard me mention the Ma'afa. The Ma'afa is a Kiswahili word meaning great disaster or calamity. It is used to describe the transatlantic slave trade, specifically the Middle Passage, and its lasting impact on our people. It is a term used to commemorate and honor the suffering of those who were forcibly taken from Africa and endured the journey across the Atlantic. So, when you hear someone want to demonize you for revering our ancestors, point out to them what they're revering and where it leads them culturally, mentally, and spiritually. African spirituality. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. It's something how the media defines people. Now, I seen this brother and I didn't like what he did. Went up in the mall with a fake gun. Okay. Now he got arrested. His brother Emil, Darren Hobson, and charged with committing a terrorist act with a fake gun. And I don't know if he was waving it around or he tried to rob somebody or what. All right. But let me tell you something. A white man executes 9 in Charleston. Not terrorism, according to the media. A white man executes 17 at Parkland. Not terrorism. A white man executes 28 at Sutherland. Not terrorism. A white man executes 59 in Vegas. Not terrorism. A black man with a fake gun charged with terrorism. This is what racism looks like in action. Because when your existence is criminalized, and I hate to use him as an example, and let me give you the example of those of us that protest. Like the group of black people I saw in Detroit. Fortunately, the brother that was leading their gathering knew his rights. You got to study your rights. Because he let them know. And they sent a black police officer to this group that declared that they're on their way to an act of terrorism. And that brother said, no, we had the right by the Constitution to peacefully assemble and discuss our situation. But their reaction was, this is borderline terrorism here. When your existence is criminalized, the next step is declare any semblance of assertiveness as terrorism. Meanwhile, we are terrorized. For instance, take Maryland, the state of Maryland, right over here. It was there Monday. It's found out in Maryland, they're covering up the murder of black people in police custody. Yes, if black people were murdered in police custody or during a restraint, they were misclassifying their murder. Instead of saying that it was a homicide, they say it was undetermined or it's accidental because the examiners were racist and pro-police. And they only did this with the black deceased, the black people who died in police custody or in police restraint. And this all came to light because of Dr. David Fowler. Dr. David Fowler, that was the examiner that testified during the George Floyd case. He was the one that said, George Floyd died because of heart disease. And then that made everybody question his expertise. And that's when they did an audit in Maryland because he was the chief examiner for Maryland from 2002 to 2019. This is systemic. So I wonder how many other states are doing the same thing, misclassifying these autopsies as determined or as undetermined or accidental when they're really homicides. It's terrorism, state-sponsored. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye, closing out here soon. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist, right here on WHGE 95.3 FM. Yeah, I'm off Monday. Yeah, we off Monday, y'all. Oh, it's a holiday. Memorial Day. So we commemorate those that put on the uniform that didn't make it back home. Memorial Day. Where did we start that? Well, let me tell you. For those of you who don't know, the very first Memorial Day ceremony was held by freed slaves after the Civil War. It's a holiday created by white people. By black people. When Confederate troops evacuated Charleston, South Carolina, newly emancipated slaves dug up a mass grave of fallen Union prisoners. They gave them a proper burial in a new cemetery, complete with a whitewashed fence and a powerful inscription. Martyrs of the Race Course. On May 1st, 1865, a crowd of 10,000 strong, mostly freed slaves and missionaries, gathered for a parade. 3,000 black school children marched with bouquets of flowers, their voices ringing out with John Brown's body. And members of the 54th Massachusetts and other black Union regiments performed double-time marches. Black ministers recited verses from the Bible. The first Memorial Day was all about paying homage to the men who died fighting to abolish slavery. And that's where it started. I'm a veteran, yeah. And let me tell you something. I got this from another veteran. In the enlisted oath, we swear that we will uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States from, and I quote, all enemies, foreign and domestic. foreign and domestic. We also swear, following that part, that we will obey the orders of the President of the United States and of all officers appointed above us. And that is where the clarification, I believe, is needed. So yes, we swear to follow the orders of the President of the United States. However, first we swear that we will uphold and defend the Constitution. The presidential part comes after that. And that is very important detail. See, the founding fathers were worried that people in government over time would become greedy and desire power. And so they specifically worded things so that the military could not be used to take power from the people and give it to one man. We don't swear any allegiance or loyalty to the president. Let me say that again. We don't swear any allegiance or loyalty to the president. The Constitution does not recognize the power and authority of any king. And so the moment that the president breaks his oath of office, his power and authority as president becomes null and void. And the moment that happens, we are no longer under oath to obey any orders that he may issue. And that is on purpose. Be clear on that. Because he's in violation right now. And I would say that the military has no obligation to listen to a goddamn thing he says. His orders are null and void. As are his political skills. Because China then put a black eye in the game, and it was went off science here. And of course, you got these Americans running. China is poor. But 90% of Chinese people own their homes. There's no homelessness. They retire early. And they can go see a doctor without going bankrupt. Who's really poor? Mm-hmm. The American dream ain't real. It's from a TikToker. Actually, a white guy. It's historian. Keeps it real. The American dream ain't real. Never was. It's a bedtime story. It's a bedtime story they tell poor people, so we won't wake up and burn the whole system down. Work hard, play by the rules, and you'll make it. Yeah, then why are millions of Americans barely scraping by while billionaires hoard enough money to end poverty 100 times over? They tell us about effort, that if you're struggling, it's your fault. Not the rigged economy, not the landlords jacking up rent 150% since the 1990s. Not the fact that minimum wage hasn't come up with inflation since the 60s. And not the fact that half of us don't have $500 for an emergency in our savings account. While CEOs make that in a second. Nah, it's you. You just didn't try hard enough. I say BS. They say go to college, but a degree doesn't mean nothing when you're drowning in debt you'll never pay off. Student loans in this country total $1.7 trillion. And who profits? The same banks that needed bailouts, while most Americans lost their homes. And oh wait, the same politicians that send their kids to Ivy League schools with no debt, no struggle, no worries. It was never about giving us a future. It's about trapping us. That's what student loans are. It's a debt trap. They say, buy a house. With what? Wages ain't moved in decades. Rent so high you can't even save. The average home price is 5 times what it was in the 80s. And they want to tell us it's just inflation. No, it's greed. It's billionaires and banks buying up homes, turning neighborhoods into playgrounds for the rich, pushing working people into the dirt. They say just get a good job. Where? Factory jobs are gone. Retail jobs can barely pay rent. Healthcare costs can wipe out your whole life savings overnight. They say the economy is booming. For who? Because it ain't the single mom working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. It ain't the guy breaking his back in a warehouse with no benefits. And it sure as hell ain't the millions working harder than ever just to stay broke. And they tell us, well, at least you have freedom. Freedom? Freedom to what? Die? Because we can't afford insulin? To work ourselves to death while billionaires ride rockets out in space? To choose between rent and food? That ain't freedom, that's a death sentence. The truth is, the American dream is a leash. It's a leash. A scam, a fantasy to keep us obedient. To keep us blaming ourselves instead of the real enemy, the ones who rigged the game in the first place. And they will keep us chasing that lie until the day we die, unless we finally say enough. We don't need to work harder. We don't need to suffer more. We need to take back what's ours. We built this country. We keep it running, and we're the ones struggling. Not anymore. The dream is dead. It's time to build something real. WHGE 95.3 FM. Dope and I. All right. I'm Patrice Gibbs. I hope you learned something, because I learned something before I came in here. Yeah. And I could keep going, right? Like I said, I learned something before I got here. If you want to dispute anything, I say look it up, do the research. Because I don't bring nothing to you before I do the research. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This has been Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. All right. Damn, Steve. Yeah, I see you, bro. It's something. Like I told you, keep an eye on Africa. And take a look at China, okay? Take a look at China. There's nothing wrong with socialism. Like I told you, global African supremacy. It's not just coming, it's here. I'm Patrice Gibbs.